Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another YouTube video. In this one, I wanted to talk a little bit about just some of the things that I'm learning as, I'm growing as an entrepreneur. It's a constant growth process, right? You're never done. And one of the things that I'm observing as we're attempting to scale my business sort of to that next level is essentially that,
of the first week of...
no matter... That's fine, she's on the phone. No matter how hard you push, you have to actually be pushing on the right things. And I think it's hard to identify what those right things are as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you've got a business, and a business is kind of like this collective system of a bunch of moving pieces and a bunch of parts and a bunch of different variables. And there's also things, down the pipe, or like I'm looking down this long pathway right here. It's like there's a bunch of things down the pathway that are coming down that you can't even expect. And then they shock the whole system. Like, you've got a huge issue with your bank or your payment processor. You really never know. And then there's all these little mini moving parts and things that, control the whole system that you weren't even aware of. Like, it turns out there was like this one bad review out there of this guy that was a terrible client that is like sending tons of clients away from you, and you didn't even realize it. So there's a lot of moving parts that you see and that you don't see. And they're all interconnected in this way that is so complex that if you're trying to measure the whole thing at once, it's just going to be impossible. So in this video, I wanted to talk about how to simplify your work so that you can make sure you're actually working on the things that matter. Because I think a lot of people, they try and adopt things that don't matter in order to feel productive. So we're going to talk about the difference between productiveness and effectiveness. And then after that, I want to discuss how to actually simplify your view of your business. Because this is something I see a lot with our clients. We've worked with over 500 clients now, all of which have their own coaching or consulting or agency businesses, very complex services and complex workflows for their business. So it's our job to very simply give them a framework that they can follow. So really two things: productivity versus effectiveness, and how to simplify the view of your business so that you can ensure that what you're doing actually matters. Okay, it's gonna be a very valuable video. So the first thing is productivity versus effectiveness. And I think as entrepreneurs, it's really easy for the terminology we use to affect our worldview and our thinking patterns, which then enables us or disables us to make good decisions. So I've seen this word around a lot. Like, there's this very toxic productivity culture of like, how much can you get done in a day? And how much can you squeeze out of every single day? And I've actually found that it's less about how much I do, but the quality of what I do. And I think maybe that concept is more familiar to my audience because you guys tend to be a bit more, knowledgeable in your entrepreneurial careers. So I want to talk more about how to identify what is effective and what isn't effective. And so one of my mentors recently, he asked me how business was going. And I said, I'm pretty sure it's going pretty well. And he said, you're pretty sure it's going pretty well? What does that mean? And I'm like, well, revenue's coming in, our clients are happy, and I like the work, and my team is on point, and things are good. And he's like, so the problem with your answer, dude, was you aren't defining how business is going until I asked you how business was going. So I had to think, what are the variables? Okay, revenue, but then client satisfaction, not just in terms of their mood, but actually in terms of their actual results in our program, which is pretty good, actually really good. And then also, team satisfaction and my life satisfaction, and if I'm enjoying the work. So that's kind of how I defined that question, how is business? But I'd never been asked to define that question. I'd always thought okay, how do I feel about business right now? And that's just such a broken way to look at your business, because how you feel about your business is going to be so far detached. It's going to depend on how well you slept that night, how much sugar you've had this week. It's going to depend on what your brother or friend or mom said to you earlier this morning over text, or it's going to depend on your biases and the things that are going on in your world, whether it's a sunny day or a cloudy day. There's so many things that affect your emotions. So you have to get very measurable about how you measure how business is going. So once we can get to the root of how to measure how business is going, then we can identify what is an effective focus and what's just a productive focus, something that feels productive but isn't actually productive, right? So to measure how business is going, these are my measuring points, and I'd love to hear what your guys' measuring points are in the comments so you can message me and help even me think this through. But as far as I can surmise, these are my measuring points for, quote, how business is going. First one is obviously revenue. And I would say revenue from this quarter, not today, not this week, not this month, quarterly growth. I think quarterly growth is probably as macro of a focus as you can have while still staying relevant to the day-to-day, and as micro focus as you can have while still being relevant to the bigger picture. So I look at quarterly growth more than anything else. I'm not looking at day-to-day or week by week. I'm not even actually looking at month by month. Quarterly growth is my focus, because if I focus on month by month, very quickly, I'm gonna start making decisions that don't actually benefit the customer. Like this month is a down month in revenue, but it's an up month in client satisfaction, team role satisfaction. I'm adjusting some things in my life and getting ready for a big push. So August is a down month, but I honestly could care less, because my job isn't just to consistently bring in revenue. My job is to build everything the right way, fundamentally, so that long-term, our revenue goals are a natural byproduct of our decisions today. So that's the first one, quarterly revenue. The second way that I measure my business is in client satisfaction. Client satisfaction comes in two forms. The first I've found is like what other people say about you. So what are people saying about you behind your back? And it's a hard thing to measure, but you can honestly just ask your clients. You can say like, hey, like what have you said? Or like you can look in Facebook groups and search your name and find what people are saying. Or you can also, just honestly ask and like, hey, what do you think? Like, have you enjoyed it? Are you getting results? Are you happy with the process? And, I don't know that many like coaches or agencies or programs that actually survey their clients, but this is something we're working to do. So we're actually going to be putting our clients through a survey and hearing all their feedback so that we can adjust the program based on what people are telling us they want more of, less of, whatever, right? Now there's going to be certain things that they don't know. So we're going to have to self-impose certain, aspects to our offer and what we do. But hearing feedback is going to help us realize what those things are. So client satisfaction is both in what they say about you and how they feel, and also it's in whatever measurable KPI your program is supposed to achieve. So if it's a business growth program, obviously it's like short-term and long-term revenue growth. So I'd say like the first 30 days and then their first 12 months, you should be looking at that. If it's like weight loss, same thing, first 30 days, first 12 months. If it's, satisfaction of relationships, you should have a way to measure their satisfaction in their relationships and look at the 30-day and 12-month growth. So you should be able to measure all of these things so that you know how client satisfaction is, because that's another area of measuring your business. So far we've covered how to measure the health of your business with your revenue quarterly, okay? And then it's also customer satisfaction based on feelings and their actual KPI-driven results. And the last thing that you want to measure your business with is simply cash in the bank. Is your cash in the bank growing? What are you spending? How much are you spending? What are you spending it on? Keeping track of your books. Are your profits growing at the same rate that your expenses are? Or are you... That's such a loud truck. I don't know why they make these things so loud. Or are your expenses growing at the same rate that your revenue is? I think a lot of business owners get stuck in that trap of like, oh, that's just 1 or 2 sales. I can afford that. And that's how I used to justify a lot of expenses to myself. And then all of a sudden I did the books one day and I looked and I'm like, holy cow, like we're not keeping anywhere near as much money as I thought we were. Because it's really easy to start to justify like, oh, well, this like program is just like 1 or 2 sales, or oh, this thing is just, and you can do that. And there's honestly nothing wrong with that to a point. You have to be able to, in your own head, logically measure why this expense matters and make a case for yourself as to why it matters. If you can't instinctually say yes to something, don't do it, right? It has to align in all arenas with sort of what you're trying to do. So that's kind of the next tip. Benefits of living downtown, dude. So that's kind of 3 ways to measure the health of your business. Now that we understand the 3 ways to measure the health of your business, now it's time to figure out, all right, what's a productive activity and what's an effective activity? So an effective activity is something like generating leads, generating consults, making sales, bringing people into your program, getting them results, and then getting more clients as a side effect of those results, right? I'm like debating if I should reset this video in my head. This is so loud. Another effective activity is improving the amount of results that your clients get by reverse engineering. What action steps do we have to make them take? Or what things do we have to do for them to get them those results? Another effective action is minimizing expenses, right? Taking a look at your books, asking, what can we cut out so we can save more profits? What can we cut out without sacrificing team or clients, more preferably, that we can then save profits with. So when I say productive versus effective, I really mean to say effective is actions that affect one of these three areas positively. Productive is something that might have a second or third order consequence and affect these areas productively, but not directly. So an example could be like, oh, I just spent like, $1,000 on like, a new outfit because I feel like my presentation might help me close more sales. It's like, yes, maybe. And maybe you're right. There's no direct line in my thinking to what you wear and your ability to close the sale. There's no direct line. What might be a better investment is taking that $1,000 and spending it on maybe a sales psychology program, right? Or a mentor to help you close. Or maybe hiring somebody to come to the meeting with you to help you close it that is a better sales rep than you, and training them on your product or service. So I want you to think in terms of direct correlations to one of these three areas: revenue, client effectiveness, bookkeeping, profits, revenue margin, and quarterly growth. These are the only things that matter. So if you can't directly tie, not in terms of second, third, or fourth order consequences, not in terms of the butterfly effect, if you can't directly tie an action to one of these areas, it doesn't matter. It genuinely does not matter, okay? So the next piece of advice that I wanted to get into is how to view your business more simply. So we've defined so far the difference between productivity and effectiveness. Productivity is like writing up a big to-do list, stretching it all off, and feeling good about yourself by the end of the day, but you haven't actually moved the needle because you never defined what needs to get done in order to reach your goals. And thinking about it now, before we move on to measuring your business well, I think it's important to note that you can't be effective unless you have a solid, at least 3-year vision of where you're trying to go. Because then, at least with a 3-year vision of where you're trying to go, you can reverse engineer, what you have to do next, and then you know what to do, and all you have to do is figure out how to do it effectively, and then you're moving forward. So I think step one to being effective versus productive is actually knowing where you're going and why you're going there. And this is kind of like one of the big secrets that I think holds a lot of entrepreneurs back is, they've started making a bunch of money, or they're starting to make progress, and then they kind of lose track of why they're even doing it. And because they lose track of why they're doing it, or what they're even after, then all of a sudden they fall into productivity habits, like having a big to-do list, or feeling good about their work day, or even like right now, some people could argue that just like getting a workout in doesn't help my business. So it's like, there's a blurred line there, right? So moving on from that, productivity versus effectiveness. Effectiveness actually moves the needle in your business. Productivity just makes you feel good. You have to be able to directly draw a line between your actions and the things you work on, and quarterly revenue growth. Now for measuring your business. In order to grow to the level that we've grown to, I've had to effectively create a framework in my own head that I can view my business with. So I feel like the best way that I can serve you is actually just kind of download the template that I've kind of created in my own head directly to you. And you can kind of see it this way. And I see my business as sort of 3 particular nodes in a system. It's just a very direct line. Maybe you could get out a pen and a piece of paper and draw 3 squares with like a line pointing right through all of them. And on the far left, you have traffic or attention. This is the people online that are aware of what you do, right? And then underneath that square, you have a rating, or really 2 ratings. You've got 1 to 10 for the quality of the traffic you're getting, meaning are they actually interested in what you do, or are they just, blind attention? And this can also be affected and changed by the way you present yourself. So you can actually change your offer, or change the way that you speak to appeal to the people that are already following you better if you need to. And the other 1 to 10 is the size of your audience in terms of tens of thousands. So 1 would be, 10,000, all the way up to 10 being 100,000. These are people that kind of actively follow you and see what you're up to, right? So that's kind of the first box. That's traffic, that's attention. Ways to get attention is content, advertising, partnerships, whatnot, right? It's very simple. It's just get more attention. And frankly, the amount of attention you get doesn't always correlate to money, because again, the quality of the attention matters just as much. So I see every bit of output that I do, both on social media, on Instagram, on YouTube, advertising, whatever it is, just getting streams of attention, getting people to look at us. So you got traffic on 1, and you've got on the second box, you've got leads. So these are people who have opted into something. These are people where you can contact them in some way. So these can be people that like follow you on Facebook, Facebook friends. These can be people that opted into an email list. These could even be people who, you know, just follow you on Instagram or subscribe to your YouTube channel, or you can basically hit them with a message whenever you want to, whether it's one-to-one or in the form of a blast. These are people that have shown interest on some level in what it is that you do. And you've collected their information and you can contact them. So there's, again, a few ways to rate your leads 1 to 10. The first one is, you know, the amount of information they've given you. So if it's just their name and there's no contact, there's no anything there, you know, then you can't really follow up. If it's a name, an email, and a phone number and an address, then you can rate it a bit higher, right? So you can rate the quality of your leads list from 1 to 10 based on how much information they've given you. How much information have they given you? What information have they given you? Is the information relevant to their purchase, or, you know, what it is that they're gonna be doing with you in the future? So that's the first one. So, right, you can rate individual leads this way, or you can rate your entire lead list this way. So you can just kind of take your whole list and rate them based on how much information they've given you. And really, I see the more information they've given me to be more intent. So there's more intent for a purchase in the future. The other rating is, again, the size of the list. And for this, I like to use thousands. So 1 is 1,000, all the way up to 10, meaning 10,000. And for those of you with like a list of like 100, just, you know, write 0.1. That's fine too. But you can kind of just measure how many leads you have at that point. Another way to measure your leads is how long they've been in your list. So if they've been in your list for more than a year, you know, that kind of brings them down a notch. So it takes them maybe from a 10 down to a 9, right? And the longer they've been in your list, you know, you can use years, you can use quarters or months or even weeks, depending on the longevity of the sort of services that you offer. And you can measure the quality of your lead list based on, you know, that 1 to 10 scale. So you go ahead and write it up, write that square underneath, rate your lead list from 1 to 10 in each of these areas. So now you've got a traffic source, you've got a way of measuring your leads. To collect leads from traffic, just offer them something, offer them a book, offer them a training, offer them, you know, a quick one-to-one consult, offer them, you know, a private mastermind group, a Facebook group, and offer them some place to gather. There's all kinds of things you can offer people to help convert this attention into leads. Then it's conversions. This is actually where you make sales. So leads can be people that have opted in to schedule a call. They can be people that are in your group. They can be people that follow you on social media. I think a lot of people have this very narrow-minded vision of what a lead is, but to me, you know, even just a YouTube viewer is a lead. Somebody that sends me a message on Instagram with like a quick question is a lead. Somebody that, you know, joins our Facebook group is a lead. Like pretty much anybody that gives me attention that I can message them is a lead. So they don't have to opt into an email list. They don't have to register for a training. They don't have to, like, you know, if we ever host an event, which I don't think we ever will, they don't have to be there to be a lead. Like some people have such high standards for the people they're going to reach out to. You'd be surprised if you just open your eyes up a little bit, you start to notice that like everybody's kind of a lead if they've given you any attention at any point, and you can monetize that by just reaching out to them, saying, hey, you know, how can we help you? And then developing that relationship, eventually getting on a consult. That's where we get to conversions. So conversions, and you can remember this, by the way, with TLC, traffic leads conversions. It's just like a helpful mental model. Conversions are just getting on the phone and making offers. It's really that simple. It's once you've built some reciprocity on the traffic level by adding value and helping them solve their problems, building trust by showing authority, showing them what you're capable of with your other clients, and just telling your story very openly. You're gonna build a lot of reciprocity. They're gonna opt in, they're gonna become a lead where they're gonna get even more value from you. And then you can hit them with a, hey, I'd love to get on a consult, see if I can help you. So, you know, for example, if you've got a sales floor, let's say you've got 5 sales guys. Something to add like $100,000 a month to your business immediately is to get them into the habit of, when they don't have a sales consult going right then, to call a bunch of your leads and say, hey, you know, just wanted to check in on you, see how you're doing, see if there's anything we can help you with. Just very simple and open. And then referring them a resource of some kind, like, oh, you know, I'm stuck with, you know, I'm stuck on this part of my journey. So, oh, okay, cool. Let me refer you this YouTube video. It's not even our YouTube video, but it's something that helped me, like, check it out. And just developing those relationships and eventually reaching back out and saying, look, you know, we've helped you a good bit. I'm just going to hit you with, like, let's get on a call. Because very clearly you need what we do, and I'd love to offer it to you and even give you some incentive to move forward with us. And very rarely are you going to get a no if there's a lot of trust there. But often these people just aren't ready to move forward because in some back of their head, subconscious level, they've unsold themselves from working with you because they're like, oh, I'm different than your other clients, or that's not for me, or your clients aren't like me, or you can't help me in my niche. This is one we get a lot, but like, oh, you've helped these other people, but my niche is different. We hear that literally all the time, and it's never true. So it's our job to reach out to these people and say, actually, we can help your niche. Like, here's what we could do for you, right? So then it's getting on consults, hearing their issues. If they're a good fit, bringing them into your program, because obviously you can help them. It's that simple. And so a lot of people look at their business and they see all these moving parts, right? They're like, oh, I got to put out a ton of content. Oh, I got to work on my program a little bit on the side. I got to work with my team, and I got to update the course, and I got to update the webinar, and I got to, run a new ad every 3 days, and I got to, it's just like all these moving parts. All you need to get to $1 million a year is a traffic source, a decent way of collecting those leads, and a way of following up and calling them and setting appointments. It's very simple. Either you call them, or you just send out a blast. You say, hey, come book a call on our calendar. Or you don't even need to do a call. You could just say, hey, our program typically costs $5,000. Like, we're just doing a random sale. We just want some more people to join. Half off if you join in the next 24 hours. Send that email blast out. You'd be surprised how effective that is. So most people that I talk to, they've got like 6 different traffic sources and like 10 different ways of collecting leads and like 6 other offers, and they're kind of bouncing and pinging between offers. And once I started narrowing in my business to one traffic source, one lead source, one way of making sales, that's when the business started to grow exponentially, and we reached new heights extremely quickly. So in order to measure your business better, you have to bucket each arena, traffic, leads, conversions, and then start looking at where are the bottlenecks. Like, maybe you've got a great sales process, a great offer, a great service that people really want and that sells well for a high ticket, and you've got a lot of leads, but it's taking you 8 years to build like a Facebook group up to like 1,000 people, and that's your traffic source. Okay, it's time to get creative about traffic source. You can do partnerships, you can do YouTube, get better with your SEO, run some ads, whatever you need to do. Maybe you've got a lot of attention, but you can't seem to convert it on the back end. Well, you need to pull your audience and figure out what it is that they want and build an offer around what they want. So at each level, you can identify bottlenecks by saying, all right, like, is my traffic converting at least 5 to 10% into leads? And are my leads converting at least 5 to 10% into conversions? And if you have any less than 5 to 10% at any of those levels, that's your bottleneck. And if you have 5 to 10% in all of them, they're all perfect, then odds are you need more attention and more traffic, which is a lot of people's issue. So they're not willing to put in the time to build that audience for themselves online. So that's kind of my advice. Hopefully this is helpful for you. This is just a very candid conversation on how to make better decisions as a business owner by measuring your business better, getting more effective instead of more productive. And then sort of my favorite way of measuring my business, or really sort of viewing my business as a basic framework, 3 pillars: traffic, leads, and conversions. So hopefully this has been valuable to you. Take these ideas and implement them into your business, and let me know how it goes for you. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.